I still feel lost. I still just don't know where to start. You don't need to punish yourself. It's quite possible that some of these workouts that are online are not for you. Fancy is not going to bring you the results that you need. Hello and welcome to Reclaim Your Strength. My name is Danielle. I am a personal trainer and online fitness coach, and I help women over the age of 35 who want to rebuild their strength or start with fitness for the very first time. This is episode number 3. If you were with us for the last 2 episodes, we went through the symptoms and signs of perimenopause and what it is like for women's bodies and health and fitness over the age of 35 and 40. You may be thinking, okay, I have that information. That's great. But I still feel lost. I still just don't know where to start. And you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed or maybe intimidated on the idea of lifting weights. Well, this episode is for you because we're going to be focusing in on strength training for beginners and where to start. Okay, so if you know that strength training is important, but you just don't know where to begin, or you feel overwhelmed by gym and the programs and all the reels that you're seeing on Instagram and the conflicting advice, you're worried about hurting yourself or doing things wrong when you're in the gym, or you just keep on thinking, I'll start when I feel confident. I'll get there when I feel a little bit fitter. It's very common that you'll hear this, and a lot of people will actually go through these motions. The other things that people will probably say to themselves, I walk, I do Pilates, I try and stay active, but weights, it's just not for me. And I think that we need to take a good step back and have a bit of a think about that, because the last couple of episodes, we sort of explained a little bit of why weights can be really, really important for the body. And to just recap on that, and it's a really important information to know that once you start to hit the age of 35, your body starts to reduce its lean muscle mass by anywhere from 3 to 8% per decade. And then once you hit 60, it starts to speed up a little bit and you start to lose more. So if you are not addressing your strength and your muscle strength and increasing your muscle strength, then unfortunately you are going to become weaker. Your joints are going to become sorer. You're also going to be unable to do the things that you want to do independently. And also we have to go back to that bone density and the strength through the body. We just don't want you to take that step into osteoporosis. We want to make sure that your overall body is stronger and working better for you than it ever has before. Those are just some of the small reasons of why strength training or resistance training is important to add into your exercise routine. Maybe some of the reasons why you haven't started strength training or resistance training is that you have a bit of fear around it, and that's totally understandable. You could have fears around injury and hurting yourself. There is a lot of fear about feeling silly and looking silly when you're actually doing the exercises and that everybody's watching you and thinking you're not doing it correctly. And maybe you're choosing the wrong exercises. That could be something that you're fearing as well too. You just don't know what exercises to choose. And I think that those are very valid fears as well, but they can definitely be overcome and helped with some coaching, but also talking to somebody who knows what they're doing. Now, I do think that sometimes things that you can get off the internet and stuff that can be quite helpful, but if you really want to get some assistance, definitely think about hiring a coach. They are there to help you through that, to coach you, to coach yourself. It is really important that part of our role is to make sure that you're able to do this for yourself and not be so reliant as well, and understand what you're doing, Why are you doing it? What should I be feeling? And those sorts of things. And just knowing that you're feeling comfortable that you're doing it correctly. And then when you are very confident or somewhat confident, you can go in there and do it yourself and feel good about it. And then start loading on that weight if you feel good and confident about doing so. We are here to help you with all of that too. Okay? So I think it's very valuable to actually hire a coach, even if it's short term. Definitely look into that if you can, because then you are prescribed the right kind of workout for you as well too. And you're not just doing a cookie cutter or a random workout that's good for somebody else but not good for you, and it just doesn't work for you. And you come to a point where it's just not working. I can't do this. It's quite possible that some of these workouts that are online are not for you, and that we just need to make sure that you're getting the right plan in place. So the very first thing that you need to focus on, and when you step into a gym, or if you have a plan or you're with a coach, is working on your foundational movements. It's not about going straight in and lifting heavy. That is not important at the very beginning. You don't want to be doing that. You want to be focusing on the how and the why, and just feeling really confident in those foundational movements. They are things like your squatting, your hinging, so Romanian deadlifts, the pushing and the pulling, so chest and back exercises, and just feeling really confident in those grounded foundational movements. The most important piece of starting strength training for women over the age of 40 is to be learning these movement patterns. It's to be building joint stability, okay, and teaching the body how to tolerate the loads again and again. Repetition is the best. I want you to think about building a foundation and your body's foundation like building a house. If we don't have a base and a solid base or foundation to build up from, then we won't have that stability. Things won't feel stable. They will feel unstable. And this is where our fear of injury could come from and things like that. So we want to make sure that we are having a nice base to work with. And starting with light weights can be a perfectly fine starting point for a lot of people. You do have to start building up from that, but light weights is a good place to start, okay? Body weight still counts as well too. So don't be afraid to start at the very beginning with no weights and having something that works for you there. We don't have to load you up from the very beginning. We just have to see how you move, and you just have to see how you move and how it feels through all those motions. So body weight can be fantastic at the very beginning. Also, you want to feel like it's manageable, okay? Manageable is the goal. Because if you don't feel like it's manageable and that you can do it, you're going to toss it in. It's not going to work for you, and it's not going to feel good, and you're not going to keep going with it, and you're not going to be progressing with it. We've got to start with something being manageable as well too. So the next place that I would start with is how many exercises would you actually do? And you actually don't have to start with very many at the beginning. You can just start with the main ones that you want to play around with, or the main actions that you want to play around with. Things like your squatting patterns is a good start. The hinging, as I mentioned, like Romanian deadlifts, things like that. Your pushing and your pulling. Also, I would add some core stability in there. So you could start with about 4 or 5 exercises, because your core stability can still come into play with your other exercises as well. But I would say, 4 to 5 exercises is a brilliant starting point. It's just knowing which ones to pick for you. So you can see we don't have a lot of exercises here. We haven't given you like a whole page of exercises that you're going to spend an hour in the gym to do. We're just not. That's just not viable. Also, you can see that we haven't given you anything fancy either. Fancy is not going to bring you the results that you need. Fancy is for Instagram or people who are advanced or, are intermediate and they want to do something a little different. But fancy and all these flashy exercises with a lunge, curl, and a press do not help you with your foundational muscle growth. Okay, because your body doesn't know which one you want to focus on. You're focusing on too many things at once, and it doesn't give you the focus and the concentration on that one muscle that needs your attention. So those things are actually quite redundant and don't actually work very well. But when you get confident, maybe you might want to try something like that. But again, you don't even need those things. They are not important. That is just flash. And that's my thoughts on it. It's just flash and it's stuff that's on Instagram. And yes, I've done that flashy stuff. And you know what? Sometimes it can be fun, but I'll only do it for fun. It's not a part of my proper routine and it's not my focus. So we mentioned it in the previous episode, but let's just go back on this again, that how often should you train? You really need to just look at what your abilities are at the beginning and where you're starting from. But all you need to begin with is around 2 to 3 times a week. And even further on after that, once you've progressed, around that 3 times a week can be quite substantial, and you don't need to change that unless you want to, unless you have the ability and the recovery to do so. Otherwise, we just need the 2 to 3. That is all we are looking at. And there is so much quality you can get out of those 2 to 3 sessions a week, as long as you're focusing in on intention, focusing in on each of those exercises individually, every rep, and trying to work through and feel through each of those exercises and take those each reps seriously and focused. As you can see, we definitely don't like the go hard or go home concept here, because it just doesn't work, especially around this time of your life. The harder you go, the more you push, the more that you try and find the sweat or the burn or the pain in the next couple of days, the more that you're going to struggle with your recovery and the more that you're not going to get the results that you need. So I want you to see that consistency with your movements and your exercises and building the strength and the confidence and trusting your body every time you go in is what's going to give you those results that you need. You're going to be able to work through stress as well too. Okay, we're going to work on stress. It's going to help with poor sleep. It's going to help with yourself overall. But we've also got to remember too here that our programs that we plan for ourselves have got to fit our life. Okay, it's not going to work if it doesn't fit your life, but also it's not going to work if you don't put that time in as well too and allocate that time to yourself. If you keep giving all of your time to everyone else, you are going to suffer for it in the end. You can see that all these people possibly in your family all have these activities and these times and these things that they go and do, but do you have your own? Or are you giving your time and energy to everyone else and leaving yourself empty? Because that's not going to work. So we do have to take that one step forward and just put the foot down and try and find what works somewhere in there and try and make it work for as long as you possibly can make it work for. Of course, life and disruptions do happen. All right, so you've got to be prepared for that. And that's where my base method comes in for most of my clients. We use that to help them through. We help them through Christmas and New Year's with the base method. And it worked really well for a lot of the ladies because they were able to take a breath and know that they can still commit to what they're doing, but they weren't pressured into anything that they shouldn't be pressured into. And they found time to still commit to their family and what was going on at the time, which is the busiest time, obviously, of the year. So you just have to make it work. And then when it starts to get disrupted, and might know, because that's part of life, and expect disruption. just know that there is a way around that as well too, to keep that momentum going and keep committing to where you can commit. And so that consistency still occurs and you don't lose that momentum. So as I mentioned, the baseline, this is a technique or a method that I use with my clients. And part of that is modification. So you don't always have the time to do your full workout. It's okay. If you need to reduce your time and slightly adjust your workout, it is not failing. It is making allowances for still committing your body to what it needs at the time and giving it its full attention for the time frame that you have. If you put all the attention into that workout that you're doing, even if it's for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, the value that comes from that is so, so important. It's all about intention. So if, say, you have a workout that's 3 rounds and you don't have time to do the 3 rounds, my first rule of thumb is do not eliminate exercises. Never eliminate exercises. Reduce the rounds. You might slightly adjust the reps, okay, but you need to make sure that you're putting in the full effort in every single rep you do and putting that time and effort in a little bit more with every round. And those 2 rounds that you do will be so valuable. So it's not failing, it's not being lazy or anything like that, because you've still put that massive amount of effort in. And there are studies out there that have shown that the first 2 rounds can be very beneficial to you, and sometimes the 3rd round may not. We tend to put so much effort into the first 2 rounds anyway, so you're getting quality no matter what. So my rule here for this one is don't skip, don't miss, adjust. So what changes when you take this simple approach and just focus in on the basics, the foundations, and the time frame that you need and what you need for right now? Well, you do start feeling less intimidated. We hope. A lot of our women do feel less intimidated. You stop second guessing yourself. You feel more confident in what you're doing. And you don't need to punish yourself. It's just not necessary. And you feel like you're getting something from your workouts because you're putting that quality in and you're putting that effort in. So let's recap on this one. First off, we looked at how including strength training can be overwhelming and it can be such a tough first step to take. But we know that you can do it. And as we said, getting a coach is a great way to start. Okay, it doesn't have to be forever, but it can be a really important way to start building that foundation for yourself, knowing exactly what you need personally for you and your body and your lifestyle right at this time. Number 2, we sort of focused on building those foundations and what kind of intensity you need. You just need to focus on the basics. That's all you need. You don't need 20 exercises. You don't need to be pushing yourself or anything like that. You can start with light weights. You can start with body weight, and you can start building on that foundation. The next point is which workout patterns or exercise patterns work the best and are the ones that you should be focusing on first. And that is your squatting, that is your hinging, your push and your pull, and some core stability. So as we said, 4 to 5 exercises, just finding those right ones for you to begin with and build that confidence over time with those exercises. And then you can start building out from there. Repetition is definitely the key, and I know it sounds boring, but exercise sometimes can be boring in that way. But I want you to be excited about every progress point that you make when you are doing these exercises, how it feels when you go up in weights, those kind of things. They can be so rewarding. So look at the bigger picture on this one as well. The next point was how often. And that was the 2 to 3 days a week And it doesn't have to be too overwhelming. You can have 30-minute sessions. You can have an hour session depending on what time and availability you have for yourself, but you can definitely do it. It doesn't have to be too often or for too long. Spending 2 hours in the gym is not what people really need, especially at this time, unless they are a bodybuilder and they're doing competitions and they are wanting to have that particular physique and they have the energy and the time to put in. At the beginning, we're only looking at 2 to 3 days a week, and that's sufficient enough for us to start with and maybe even continue with on an ongoing basis permanently. The next point we had was modification, and knowing that modification is not failure. It's using our baseline method and focusing on what changes can I make but still have my commitment to what my routine is and still make it work for me under different circumstances, especially when our week is disrupted and things change, such as going on holidays and things like that. There is always a workaround, but in regards to this, modifying is not failing or being lazy. It is still being committed to what you're doing and still continuing with your routine, and that is okay. That's more than okay. If you do need to stop, make sure that you do have to jump back in as soon as possible. I totally get it when things happen, such as going on holiday. My advice to you when going on holiday, just briefly here, is that still continue to do exercise. Walking is exercise. Okay, making sure that you're actually going for these planned walks if you can, or trying to get some sort of activity in if you can. Keep moving around. Don't stop moving if you can help it. Make sure that you're still being active if there is a possibility for that. But also plan yourself and make sure that you're jumping back in. Now, I know it's a struggle sometimes to jump back in as well too, so that's where you might make those modifications again, making the session a little bit shorter and still doable, but not dismissing those sessions altogether, just still committing to them the best way that you can in that moment in time. And finally, how this will all make you feel in the end. It will just hopefully give you more energy. We find that our clients tend to have more energy, but also tend to do more activity as well too, because it becomes part of who they are. So going for walks a lot more, going for bike rides, or trying to get some sort of movement activity into their life, they do so much better. Also, when their food changes and things like that, they become more happier in regards to the foods that they want to try and eat and experiment with, and they just have a better time overall with their new routine once it settles in and they get accustomed to it. So this does start off quite hard at the beginning, and I'm not going to lie, trying to change a routine like this can be tricky. So maybe start with 1 day of training or strength training if that's what you need, and then have a look each week of how you can slowly build up on that. We're just focusing on training at the moment. Obviously, there's other things like nutrition and getting your daily water intake and stuff like that. Okay, there is lots to think about, but we want to do everything in small doses. Okay, so just focusing on strength training for now. But you kind of just want to, if you want to add 1 day a week and see how that feels for you, or go with a coach 1 day a week and see what that feels like for you, because they're standing next to you and supporting you within the gym, and they also are getting you accustomed to what it feels like in the gym and getting you feeling really comfortable as much as possible and confident in the gym. And if you need to start with that, just start with that. It's so important to feel like you are empowered when you're going in there too, not feeling overwhelmed. So do get the support if you need it too. Even if it's a gym buddy, get a gym buddy if you can. I know that can be tricky too because, generally we start these journeys on our own. but also there's communities out there too. So we have one, Reclaim Your Strength, on Facebook. It's our ladies over 40 crew who are looking at improving their fitness and their lifestyle. So definitely jump on that Facebook group and just join in on a conversation or find a community that's really resonates with you, because there are plenty out there. Don't do it alone if you don't want to do it alone. You know, there is a few ways that you can definitely do this with support. So before we finish, I just want you to know that you don't need to feel ready to start, okay? Just start. That's all we suggest. You need a starting point that is for you and your body. All right. So even if it's just doing some body weight stuff at home to start with, just to see how it feels for you, then just see how it feels for you there. So if you feel like this episode resonated with you or might resonate with somebody else, please definitely share it. Subscribe if you can. That would be awesome too. But I would love to hear some comments down below too of any struggles that you might be having starting this journey, or if you're already in this journey and you are finding some roadblocks or having any concerns of like making a plan and getting yourself on an actual road to this journey of yours. I would love to definitely hear your comments below and find out if there's any way that we can reach out and give you some support as well. That would be fantastic. So thank you again for listening to episode 3 of Reclaim Your Strength. It is so good being here. I hope that we can give you more value as we go. I'm really enjoying this, so I hope you are too. And until next time, have an amazing day. And don't forget to reclaim your strength.